We are told that the world ocean covers 71% of our planet's surface. And then, in the same breath, they add with a straight face that it is, at best, 5% explored. Stop and consider those numbers for a moment. The operating system of our world is for 3/4 of its capacity an unindexed, inaccessible archive. We are encouraged to believe that this is just water, salt water. But what if the ocean is not just water? What if it is a vast partitioned system drive where the corrupted files of previous eras are dumped? A recycle bin for history. Gigabytes of data on civilizations, on biological forms, on the very laws of physics, all of it was marked as obsolete and moved to the archive. An archive carefully guarded by crushing pressure and absolute darkness. The cartographers of the past, men like Athanasius Kircher, were more honest. They didn't just draw sunken islands. They were attempting to restore a memory map after a global system format, an event they called the Great Flood. Their maps are the first attempts to run a data recovery utility, and they show that vast land masses and therefore entire civilizations now lie at the bottom of the ocean, marked for deletion. But as we know, in any system, nothing is ever truly deleted. And sometimes these deleted files begin to surface. And when they do, official science pretends that nothing is happening, because a system that cannot access the old log files of its own history is doomed to repeat the same critical eras over and over. Australia. The indigenous people, whose collective memory hasn't been formatted as frequently as ours, speak of a cataclysm thousands of years ago. No one believed them, of course. Those are just myths. But when artifacts dated to 9,000 years old are found at a depth of 14 meters, official science is forced to admit, yes, something was here. But what exactly? They call them settlements, such a convenient, safe word. But what if they are not settlements, but error messages left behind by a previous version of the operating system? Reality OS build 7.0. Then a crash occurred, and the system was rolled back to the current version. Or consider Japan, 30 miles off the coast, at a depth of 30 meters. They find not just ruins, they find 8 towers, 27 meters in height, with spiral staircases. This doesn't resemble a city so much as the motherboard of a giant mechanism. Modern science isn't interested in this, because to acknowledge its existence means to admit that a civilization capable of such construction existed before ours, and that violates their entire, neat, linear concept of progress. But the apotheosis of this theater of the absurd is the discovery off the coast of Cuba, at a depth of 700 meters, an entire city, pyramids, tunnels, megalithic structures, a sphinx. And what does official science say? Perhaps it's 2,000 years old. 2,000. They look upon architecture that is beyond their comprehension, and they apply the nearest, most convenient time stamp. They are failing to see the obvious pattern. 7,000 years in Australia, 9,000 near Japan, 2,000 off Cuba, 13,000 the official date for the destruction of Atlantis. This is not a chronology. This is a system crash log, a record of periodic planetary reboots, and the cause of these reboots, which they remain silent about, is external influence, comets, system updates arriving from outside that forcibly format the hard drive. Sometimes the deleted files are so large they cannot be ignored. And that is when the system employs its favorite method, the patch. It doesn't fix the error, it simply covers it up with a crudely made fix. A prime example is the so-called Great White Wall, a gigantic underwater structure connecting the poles. When it was discovered on satellite maps, it caused a stir. And do you know how the system, through the mouths of its scientists, responded? Our apologies. It's merely a stitching error in the satellite imagery. An error in the stitching. The laziest explanation imaginable. They simply took the eraser tool in their graphics editor and wiped the anomaly away. Case closed. But there's a problem. A patch is installed on the server, but it doesn't always render correctly on the client-side machines. Local divers in Fiji know all about this wall. It lies close to the surface, covered in coral, and they even offer tours for tourists. A wall that goes a kilometer deep. But exploring it any further is, of course, forbidden. To protect the coral, a convenient excuse, isn't it? Or take the object off the coast of Peru, a perfectly circular disk, nearly 7 kilometers in diameter. Nature does not create such objects. This is either a sunken metropolis or a giant craft. Its coordinates were online, but try to find it now. It's being scrubbed, like any other anomaly that doesn't fit the official map of reality. The maps are being carefully edited. The render must be kept clean. But the most interesting part begins when the system fails to delete not an object, but a subroutine. When old, obsolete code continues to run in the new version of the operating system, legacy code. The Mariana Trench, the deepest point on the planet, the perfect place to quarantine dangerous files. And there they find the teeth of a Megalodon, a giant shark that, according to the official version, went extinct 2.5 million years ago. But the age of the teeth they found is between 11,000 and 24,000 years. What does this mean? This is not just an animal that survived. It means the subroutine Megalodon.ex was never properly uninstalled from the system. It continues to execute in the background, in the deep, hidden processes, and sometimes instances of it break through into our stable build. A 100-ton monster is not an animal. It is a terrifying bug from a previous, far more brutal version of the software, Reality V 1.0, the Jurassic build. And the giant tracks on the floor of the Pacific? Imprints 2.5 meters long, some enormous bipedal creature. Are these the footprints of a deleted user? Or a system defragmentation process we were never meant to see? The biologists are silent. Such units do not exist in their manuals. But here is the final chord. On the ocean floor, where no sunlight penetrates, scientists find zones with elevated oxygen levels. There is no photosynthesis, yet there is oxygen. The explanation: deposits of rare earth metals are acting as geobatteries, causing electrolysis and splitting water molecules. This is not just a chemical reaction. This is a hidden power supply, a subsystem that powers these deep-sea quarantine sectors of reality. Perhaps these are the processes that cause the anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle, changing the density of the water and sending ships to the archive. So, what is the final summary? The ocean is not merely unexplored territory. It is a quarantine zone, a giant system partition that stores the corrupted data of past worlds, the undeleted subroutines of monsters, and the hidden power supplies that fuel processes unknown to us. Official science suggests we ignore this. It suggests we look through telescopes at distant rendered galaxies rather than down at our feet into the abyss that covers 3/4 of our own planet. Because if we begin to study this archive, their entire neat and convenient model of the world will collapse like a house of cards. We are the users of the current, supposedly stable version of reality. But beneath us, in the ocean's abyss, lies the graveyard of previous versions, and sometimes the echoes of old errors reach us from the deep. If we do not learn to read these error messages, we are doomed to become just another corrupted file at the bottom of this endless blue screen of death. End of line.